So this is what we expect our calculator to look like based on the design. Basically a bunch of numbers, all the numbers from the digits from 0 to 9. The decimal point, a plus minus sign, and equal to calculate the result. And then a subtraction, addition, division, and multiplication operators. A C to clear all the data and just display a 0. And these two have left them as question marks. This is what you will implement. You will choose something, whatever you feel like. For example, you could choose a square operator or a square root or any other mathematical function that is typically found on a calculator you could put here before you submit your assignment. So this is what we will be doing, and when we create the layout in the Android layout editor, we will add the buttons for all of these and the text view for displaying the number. Okay, so let's do that. Oh yes, so this is what our app right now looks like. It's just a hello world. So we need a label, which is already here. So what we will do is we'll just change the text of this label to 0. And the other thing we'll do, like we did last time, is clear all constraints so that we can, just do first the visual layout and then add however we want to, make those things position relative to each other. So this will move it to the top. In fact, we already know that we want it to occupy the whole width. So this is how you can do that. You see these circles? These are what are around the text view. And each circle in that direction, it sets the constraint. So for example, right now we know that we want this to be full width, occupy the whole width. So if I stretch the left circle and the right circle to the respective edges, it will become like this. And the other thing I can do is there is a declared attribute here, which right now is declared as wrap content, the width, layout width. Wrap content means it will be just as wide as the content is. So when it said hello world, it was as wide as the hello world. Here, if you see the drop down, there are two options. One is match constraint and the other is wrap content. If we choose match constraint, it should stretch and fill up the entire width. So that's what we want. We'll leave it like that. Now, in our layout, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of 4 buttons each. So that's what we are going to build here. So I want you to drag a button and drop it somewhere here. So it will receive an automatic ID. In my case, it gave 21. Yours should start with, actually, it should say just button and then move on from there. I want you to change this text to something like a capital X. So we see that actually when we display, we are mostly displaying a single character. That's what we want it to look like right now. Now we will make copies of this. So I want you to copy and paste it 3 times. Paste. And then again. And then once more. So we'll get 4 buttons. It pastes, when you paste it, it goes on top of, it sits on top of what you copied. So just drag it again and it will make a copy. Now we've got 4 of these because I want you to select all 4 of them. And okay, we'll copy them. So select all 4, right click, copy, and then paste. And as before, it will go and sit on top of the pre-existing 4, but you just drag them down like this, and now you keep doing that. Paste and drag. We want, oops, I by mistake I dragged only one. Okay, let me paste it again. Paste, and Command Z is to undo what you just did. Okay, so we've got 3 rows now. And where are these? Okay, I've got an extra set here. You have to be a little bit careful when creating these copies. So this is my first row, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my second row. This is my third row. And this is my fourth row. Okay, let's do a paste. I'm missing the fifth row. And now we'll copy it here. Okay, so that's our deal. 5 rows of 4 buttons each. So far, so good. Now, you see what happens is right now we have selected a device, this thick cell. If you change the device, just like we saw in the first week in iOS, you change the device type, the layout can get all messed up because this is just, it's sitting wherever we dropped it visually. If the device is bigger, the positioning will remain the same. If it's smaller, we might see that this right edge, they're getting cut. So what we want to do is we want to put constraints on them. I have a little doubt here. My buttons are going from 21 to 44. Does that mean I've got 24 buttons? Have I got 6 rows? Let me just clear that first. 6. Oh, I'm missing numbers 29 to 32. That's because I did an undo. Remember, it ate up those numbers. It does not give the same numbers again. So I don't really have extra buttons. Good. So let's see how to do the layout. Now there are different layout strategies. There are different types of what are called layout managers. So within Android, if you go here in this palette here, you see there is something called layouts. If you click on it, it will tell you what are your options for layout. And here, some things you will recognize right away. See, there is linear layout, vertical, in which you can lay out components like a vertical stack. It's called a stack layout in iOS. In that terminology, it's a stack layout, vertical stack layout. This is a horizontal linear layout where it's like a books on a shelf. And you can combine these. Then there is a table layout, there is a table row. So what we want to do is we want to choose what is going to be the best. And here you can see right away that, these are like, this could be a horizontal linear layout. This could be a horizontal like that. And these horizontal layouts could themselves be in a vertical layout, each one as one component. So that is one way of doing it. And another way of doing it is And relative layout, we don't see in the list here, but relative layouts allow you to specify things like put this to the left of that, put this to the right of that, and stuff like that. That can be done. And then the most modern concept is a constraint layout. Let's see what that is. This constraint layout was introduced to Android in 2016. Before that, we would use relative layout or linear layout that we just talked about. Constraint layout is much more efficient and powerful because in a relative layout, for example, what happens is that the when the entire view is being rendered, it has to first figure out each component of the linear layout. Let's say horizontally, if we were to position these in a linear layout horizontally, then the first computation the system would do is arrange them in a linear fashion, each one of them, and then put them in a vertical fashion, and then see if there is more space, and keep on doing that, kind of mathematics to distribute the space. It's that is much more computationally intensive than constraint layout, which basically uses constraints which are relative. They can be calculated much more easily. And it also allows us to create responsive designs, meaning the way constraint layout works is that once you define the constraints, the same constraints can be calculated more easily on different device widths and heights. And constraint layout is also useful because it replaces many combinations. So here, instead of using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 horizontal layouts and one vertical, and then perhaps another one to embed this text field, instead of all of that, we are going to use constraints. So let's see how we are going to do that. Okay. So basically, what I would like you to do is select the first 4 buttons. Okay. Like this. Just draw a box around the first 4. Make sure nothing else is selected. On the left, you can see that only the 4 buttons are selected. They show up as the gray background. Then you right click on any of those 4, and in this menu, find something called chains. So chains allow us to say that, okay, these things, they are all chained to each other, meaning their position relative to each other is fixed. This is the first one, this is the second, third, fourth. So we'll create a horizontal chain with them. Okay. And you will see immediately that they will position themselves, it will be equi-spaced. Suddenly there will be equal amount of space between them and at the edges. Repeat the same thing with the other buttons. So draw a box. You can start, even outside the view. Do not drag anything by accident. And then keep doing that. So you create 5 horizontal chains like that. Okay. That's my last one. I've got horizontal chains, 5 of them. So now you will see that they're at least, this way, they're all aligned. They're all vertically in the same position as well. Now what I would like you to do is select the 5 in any column. Let's say the first column, start with the first one, and then shift and select this text field as well, along with that first column. Okay. And then you right click and you say chain. This time you'll create a vertical chain. It will look like it's got all messed up, but don't worry about it. Once we have done all of them, it will be all right. And this time with the second column, you just select the buttons. Don't select the text field because you only need one reference point to it, which this one is already providing. And we'll create a vertical chain of the second one. And we'll do the same thing with the third one. And the fourth one. Okay. So there we go. We've got vertical chains. So this is looking somewhat neater now. We've got the text field and these buttons organized. Now, what we want to do is, we're basically wanting to make it look beautiful as much as possible. So what we'll do now is, okay, this part we've already done. We placed manually in a grid, and then we created vertical and horizontal chains. Okay, now we'll control button size using constraints. So what I would like you to do is, inside the constraint layout, select the first button that appears. Maybe your text view appears before that, but you can ignore that and start with the buttons. And then make sure that all the buttons are selected, then the text view is not. Okay, and to select an individual item, you just press Command and click, and it adds to the current selection like this. Okay, so now all my buttons are selected, right? What do I have here? These are, see here it says multiple, meaning you have multiple items to which all these things that we are going to do here, the properties we are going to change, they're going to apply to the everything that is selected. So our layout width is wrap content. So it will basically allow it to match the width of the content, but we'll make it 0 dp. So we want it to match the constraint. So that's what it did. Suddenly they all merged into each other. Same thing you're going to do with the height. Okay. So all of a sudden, the text field got pushed all the way to the top, and the buttons look like this. So it's getting better. While all of this is selected, I would like you to now apply your color scheme. We're going to change the background color to whatever your assigned color is. To do that, while these are all selected, see my selection is still active. If you click somewhere else, the selection may go away. Then you have to select all the buttons again. Just be careful to not have the text view and the constraint layout. They should not be selected. So now, while the buttons are selected, on the right, look for something called background and background tint. Okay. So here, I chose the blue color, right? So I'm going to change these buttons into a shade of blue. So I'm going to select this from the palette. Oops, it's auto scrolled out and I got rid of my selection. So I'm going to select everything again. Okay, so I have all the buttons selected and the background tint. So I've got this as the background. In fact, you will want to choose both the background and the background tint to be this color for the change to be effective. Okay. Press escape to get rid of that. So I have the same color. And the other thing I want to do right now is that that number display has become really small. Oh, and there is one more problem. These buttons have merged into each other. So while they're still selected, let's fix that. Now, this is somewhat similar to CSS and HTML. There are lots of attributes. There is padding, there is margin. So let's find where the margin is. Layout margin. That's what we are looking for. and expand this, and in layout margin put 1 dp device pixel, and that should give us a little bit of a gap between each one of these, like this. So now I have unselected them, so there will be one little line there. And what I want to do is, on top of that, I want to change the text size. See, this text view is saying 0 and it's really small. And here we are going to do two things. One is we will change the text size. So go scroll to the bottom while the text view is selected. Scroll to the bottom and look for something called text size right here. So choose a larger size. I'm going to go with 36 pixels. And now I can see the 0 and it's left aligned. So what I would also want to do is to make it right aligned. And that is right here. You see there is text alignment. You can choose text end. So it will move it to the end. And the reason it says end and not right, it's not right aligned, it's aligned to the end, because there are some languages which you write from right to left. In that case, it would become left aligned automatically. So this gives us the palette we want to work with. Let's run it and see what it looks like. Okay, supposedly it's running. Yes, there you go. So this is what it looks like now. And right now, none of these buttons do anything, which is okay. That's our next task. We are going to implement that. But this is what it looks like. And what I like to do normally is I like to, this is going to be our design. So I like to leave these buttons in a different color than this. So if you want to do that, you can go ahead and do that as well. So let me just select. I'm pressing Command and clicking to select only this outside row and the top row and the right column. And I'm going to change this both to slightly darker color. Let's go with this. Okay. And see the difference between these two, the tint and the background, is that there is a little bit of a bevel around these buttons that does not get changed. So if I change both, it will. So that's what it will look like. Okay. One more thing is that if you look at our emulator, we have got this title bar, which it is not showing here. These are settings that you can control here. So for example, to show that, if you look at, there's this icon here, visibility, view options. It has many possible settings, and they're all, you can toggle them. So one of them here is show system UI. So if you check that, it will show your calculator here with the bar, with the title bar. Okay. And last time I asked a question where to look up what the difference between design and blueprint is. So this is the design view, this is the blueprint view, and you can see both together, and it looks like this. So the main difference here is that in the blueprint, you see everything as a sort of the outline of every component that you have present, even if it's not visible in the design view. For example, if there is a text, another text I drop here, right? It's sitting there. Let me disable let me just make it design view. So I just dropped the text view here randomly. I'm going to open its attributes, and it could be a text view, it could be an image, it could be anything blank, something that is not visible. And I change its text to a space and I click out. You can't tell that there is something placed here in this mode. But if you switch to design and blueprint, you will see it. You will say, oh, there is something there. What is that? So that's sort of one utility of the blueprint view. I'm going to delete that text view that I added. I don't want it creating problems. So this is what our design of the calculator looks like. Next, we are going to change the text of all of these to match what we have here in our sketch, and we'll continue from there. And if you come this far, I've had a lot of times I've had people struggle with arranging these because of creating the chains and all that. If you miss something, if you include the wrong component, then it's all over the place. If that happens with you, just do this. Click on this button, clear all constraints, rearrange visually, and then start the chaining again. And when you get it, give yourself a pat on the back because it's pretty good. And treat yourself. Have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is that you like. And then we'll continue on from here in the next segment.